Salut à tous, bienvenue sur CoinStation. Je viens tout juste de finir l'interview avec Jason Brink de Gala Games et en vrai c'est une pointure dans le gaming et il m'a vraiment convaincu sur le futur de Gala Games et tout le potentiel que cette blockchain et que cet écosystème va avoir dans le futur. Alright, so welcome to CoinStation. So I'm with Jason Brink, the president of Gala Games. So first, very simple question. What is Gala Games?
I'm going to actually expand your question just a smidge, and I'm going to tell you what Gala is.
Okay.
So what Gala is we aim to be, and our mandate is to be, a force for good and the respected Web3 leader of entertainment.
Okay.
We're working across all entertainment verticals right now. We started with gaming, but we're also moving rapidly into film and music. And we have about 450 people internally right now. We've got a few thousand people if you include all of our various third-party studios that are working on games. We've got 28 games currently in the pipeline, all double and AAA games from very respected, very large teams. And yeah, we're gonna make Web3 gaming about games you actually want to play. That's what we're doing.
Awesome, thank you. My second question is like, how is blockchain gaming different from Web2 gaming?
So blockchain gaming at a very fundamental level is different from Web2 gaming because it includes the idea of player ownership and player agency. So as a Web2 gamer, okay, you may spend tons and tons of time in a game, you may spend tons and tons of money on a game, but at the end of the day, none of the things in that game are actually yours. And it's a terms of service violation to transfer them to somebody else. The reason for that is Web2 game companies are very focused on revenue, and they see that any type of player-to-player transaction potentially reduces their first-party revenue, which is a problem for them. We focus on the idea that you as a player should own the stuff that you buy or the stuff that you earn in a game. And that seems like kind of a small, obvious thing, but for whatever reason, it really isn't for most people. And so what we're in the process of doing is building ways and building pathways to bring Web2 gamers into Web3. For example, we recently announced a partnership with Epic Games, where you can use your Epic Games single sign-on to log into and access a Gala Games account. Some of the games that we're working on, such as Grit, and a couple more that I don't think we've announced yet, are going to be in the Epic ecosystem as well.
Okay.
And we see that as being a super important part for onboarding.
Awesome, thanks. So now, yeah, what are your best games at Gala Games and what made them successful?
Okay, so our best games at Gala, I would say, for me, my favorite game that we're currently in the process of working on is a game called Last Expedition. Last Expedition is a game that was essentially the same developers that are building Last Expedition are also building, or not also building, previously built the multiplayer sides of the last Halo and the last Call of Duty. Okay, so these are people who are very well established in the industry. The game is super fun. And I think that it's a PvP, PvE type game where you drop onto this alien planet and you have to collect resources and fight off monsters, and you're trying to gain access to this specific artifact. And as you go through this, you always have these choices of like, I've collected these resources. Do I use these resources to craft additional armor and to make better weapons? Or do I try to carry them off by myself? But then also reduce your chances of actually surviving the encounter, because the world gets more and more difficult the more time goes on. The spawns increase, they become harder to kill, they become scarier. I had one game where we had captured the artifact and we were on the the dropship to take back off again. And there's this one particular monster that will actually eat you, like swallow you whole. And there was a guy who was standing at the back of the dropship, and we're, everyone's shooting, trying to keep it clear so we can take off. And then this monster jumped up and just ate the guy, and we lost because he dropped the artifact. Okay. But it was pretty epic.
Yeah, it sounds like really, really fun. When
Very
you
fun.
say
Oh my
it's
God.
like I'm visualizing all this stuff.
Super fun.
And so from what I understood, you now support the Ethereum network, Polygon, and BNB chain. So maybe first, is that correct?
We are in the process of launching our L1, which will bridge out to all of these places.
Okay.
So currently, most of our NFTs are based on Ethereum. They're mostly ERC 1155 fungible tokens.
Okay.
But we are in the process of creating and getting ready to launch our L1, which will bridge out to all of these places and have non-fungible tokens on it.
Okay, awesome. And so from what from this, we can see that the future seems to be multi-chain. Do you agree with that statement first? And do you think the future is EVM compatible chains or rather native multi-chain ecosystems like Cosmos? Sorry.
It's a difficult question to answer. So do I believe that the future is multi-chain? Yes, I absolutely do. Do I think that the future is EVM compatible chains? Insofar as, when you ask a developer, is it possible to, and then insert whatever, the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
They can do anything. The question is it worth the time to code whatever that specific functionality is? So this is one of those things, is that pretty much anything can be EVM compatible if you really want to make it EVM compatible. But I think that in the future, what you'll see is you will see varying degrees of activation on different chains depending on specifically your requirements. Okay, so if you have a PFP project, like a blue chip PFP, you have a Bored Ape or you have a Punk, right? Something like that, a Vox. These types of projects will probably always stay on Ethereum. Okay, because there's no reason for them to go anywhere else, and there's no tons and tons of transactions behind them.
Yeah.
If you have a project where there's a bit more movement, more transactions being initiated and interacting with specific NFTs, you may use an L2. Okay, yeah, exactly. Or other EVM compatible chains like BNB chain, Polygon, Flare. All of these different things essentially serve that purpose. But if you have something that has a lot of transactions, you would use something like RL1 that's specifically designed for games with many, many, many different channels so that your specific game can operate at blinding fast speeds without having sort of the problems of the L2s and EVM side of things.
Okay, thanks. Complete answer. I saw that you recently launched Gala Films, as you mentioned in the beginning. What problem is it going to solve?
So the film industry is very similar to the music industry in that it's an industry that hasn't been disrupted for a long time. Okay, both film and music are distributed primarily through like DSPs and things like that. Spotify and Netflix and all of those things. But the problem is that in both of these industries, specifically in the film industry, how many Marvel movies have you seen in the last couple years?
I don't watch.
You don't watch. How many are you aware that exist?
Oh, 20.
There's so many movies, right? Now the thing is those are fine movies. There's nothing wrong with those movies, but they're not being built because there's a consumer demand that says, you know what, I'd specifically like to hear about this person. Not usually, right?
Yeah.
It's usually because MCU, There's this massive long-term plan for exactly what is supposed to happen, right? And they're just telling the whole story. So they are an artist, okay, essentially, pushing out lots of content into the world to tell a specific narrative and to get an arc in place, okay? And that's one thing. But what there really isn't is this consumer-driven demand side, where a consumer has the ability to say, you know what, I want this specific project, and goes and puts together a proposal and stakes a token and gets the rest of the community behind it to potentially open opportunities for a producer or a filmmaker to come along and say, oh, there is an established clear demand for this, let's pick that up and we'll run with it and actually build it. So that's fundamentally one of the main problems we're solving.
Okay, thanks. And I know that we can have nodes in Gala Films. What is a node, and how can people, have a node, and what is the benefit of having a Gala Film node?
Sure. So nodes across the entire Gala ecosystem. We have multiple types of nodes. You can look at these primarily as distributed computing resources for whatever the specific problem happens to be. The founders nodes, for example, help support confirming transactions on the new chain, and they handle the emission of various tokens and various what NFTs and all of that go through the founders nodes. Film and music nodes actually support content. Okay? So the idea here is that your film node holds pieces of films. And then as somebody goes to watch that film, it is then streamed from all of the nodes in the network. And
I get it.
The guys that we have building this are the same guy. They've built the world's largest distributed computing platform, which I don't know that I can,
Beat something?
No.
Or no?
No. Web 2.
Okay.
So there are, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this.
Okay.
There's very large entities out there that have very large distributed platforms that serve information, sort of like their own version of IPFS, that have millions and millions of peers. And that's what these guys have built. And now they're building for us.
Okay. All right. A few last questions. How do you position yourself towards other, let's say, Web3 gaming entities such as Decentraland, The Sandbox, and Axie Infinity?
Have you been listening to me talk lately? You might have been. You might have been. So here's the thing. We have 450 internal employees right now. We have in our ecosystem probably 8,000 to 10,000 developers that are working on things that are connected to the Gala ecosystem. We have 28 games coming to market. We have deployed somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million this year. So, how are we different? I would.
I mean, I understood from everything.
No. I know, but so the thing that I'm getting at is that people have a tendency to look at Gala and they say, "Oh, Gala, metaverse token." Okay, they keep talking about us as being a metaverse token, and the reality is that we're not. Right? We're so infinitely bigger than anything that's going on, and this is nothing against, the Sandbox or Decentraland or anything like that. It's just that what they're doing is fundamentally different from what we're doing. The Sandbox has a really cool, cute, UGC-driven world where people can build and play and you can own a little square of land, and congratulations, that's great. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But it is quantitatively and qualitatively different than from what we're doing with AAA gaming and AAA film and AAA music. It's just a very different thing. That's all.
Maybe I can rephrase my question. Sure. I know that today Gala Game is in the position of 100, the token. I mean the Gala token on CoinMarketCap. And if you look at Axie Infinity token, the AXS, or the Decentraland token or the Sandbox token, they're higher. How would you explain that? Maybe people are just not aware of Gala. I don't know.
I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, we've got a little bit of a problem in that we're doing so much that it's difficult to message.
Okay.
There's so much going on that it is very difficult for any one person or any one small group of people to effectively present that to the world. This is one of the things that we're working on right now. We actually have a very large campaign getting ready to roll out, probably a $10, $15 million campaign, getting ready to roll out, telling the world what Gala actually is, and telling the world what our L1 is and what it does, and all of that, and getting that story out. I think that, and again, we don't talk about price, typically speaking.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things that I think it's where it is because people don't know where else to put it. And they see Sandbox and they see Decentraland with a little bit of a longer history. Yeah. And then we've been quite submarine here for a while. We have not been talking about all of the stuff that we're doing. And, like I just said in the workshop here, there's like 350,000 messages in our Slack in the last 30 days. So there's just so much happening that it is impossible for anyone to get a handle on it, to present it and share it with the world.
I understand. Clear. So I have two more questions. How does the future of the entertainment industry looks like?
I think the future of the entertainment industry at a very fundamental level is based on the concept of ownership. I think that for a long time we've existed in a world in which we've allowed large companies, Web 2 companies, to own us. We're the product for a Web 2 company.
The data.
Exactly. And I think that the future is self-ownership and self-actualization, and if you like a particular song, you can own that song. And you can potentially receive some benefit for doing so if you're allowing other people to gain access to it. I think that model is a profoundly powerful model when you put it up against the Web 2 counterparts out there. So I think that you're going to see a lot of interesting growth in the entertainment space as this concept of ownership becomes more and more embedded.
And last question, your thoughts on the metaverse?
What metaverse?
The metaverse.
The metaverse.
The big one.
The. So the problem with the metaverse is that the metaverse doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So what we have is this interesting collection of what I call mini-verses. Okay, where you have things like the Sandbox or Decentraland or, Roblox or pick one, it doesn't matter. That these are essentially walled gardens. The real metaverse, as envisioned by Neil Stephenson, has not yet been built because no one person can build it.
Yeah.
No one company can be the metaverse company, despite what they might like to call themselves. Okay, no one company can do that because at the end of the day, the metaverse is permissionless. It is driven by users. It is driven by people standing up their own little pieces of it. It's not gated by ownership of a plot of land. It's not gated by any of that. It's its own thing that can grow and evolve and has any rules that people want to code into it. But it's not something that a company can own. It has to grow organically or it won't grow at all.
Okay. So that's the end. I was so happy to have you, really. So thanks a lot, Jason, for answering all my questions. And it was, a big pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. And I encourage everyone to go check us out at gala.com and follow us on social media at Gala Games or me at BitbenderBrink. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Awesome.